RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that, head of Russian delegation in talks with the Kiev regime, Medinsky made a very significant statement, in my opinion. He said that freezing of the conflict in Ukraine will lead to a nuclear war. And I mean, statement cannot go any more serious than that, isn't it? So let me give you some details. Freezing the conflict in Ukraine without agreements on a real peace will lead to a nuclear war, presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky said on RT. And few key points from his statements. The terms of the peace treaty in 2022 for Ukraine were softer than those that Russia is offering Kiev today, which is true, by the way. And as I said, the longer this conflict continues, more harsh Russian terms are gonna be. It's just you don't have to be genius to understand that, isn't it? At the time in 2022, Russia demanded Ukraine's refusal to join NATO, the Orthodox Church, and the Russian language in Ukraine to be treated equal with the Ukrainian language, recognition of the results of the referendum in Crimea, to leave alone the two regions of Donbass that do not want to live as a part of Ukraine. That was 2022, by the way, March, April, when there was negotiations in Istanbul, initially in Belarus, then in Istanbul, and even some preliminary agreements were reached, isn't it? But then, after that, globalists get involved there. They send their proxies, their puppets, basically, from UK, Boris Johnson, from US, Nuland was sent there, I believe, also some officials from high-ranking officials from CIA, and they derailed these talks between Moscow and Kiev. We all remember that. And now, if Ukraine, and Medinsky continues, if Ukraine wanted the peace and made decision on its own, the peace treaty with Moscow would have been signed on February 28, 2022. We have a quote from him. We finally came to an agreement the first time in Istanbul. We prepared their treaty. I remember it as if it was yesterday. 19 pages, very detailed. There were even such nuances so that the words would not be understood. Their words would be understood the same way in Russian, English, and Ukrainian. And it does matter, by the way. Sometimes translation of the text, same text, in different languages can be read very differently. And even these nuances were taken in account while the Russian side was preparing this agreement. On April 15, President Putin looked at this treaty and made one or two corrections. He is a professional lawyer, Medinsky said. And he also continued, Zelensky was silent for 2 weeks after receiving the agreement that was discussed in 2022. Boris Johnson and people from Joe Biden came to see him. Ukrainians in 2022 said that their foreign partners were against concluding an agreement that was then agreed upon with the Russian side. As I said, dear friends, globalists send their puppets and derail this agreement. In the eyes of Ukrainian armed forces soldiers who were in Istanbul, there was a clear reluctance to fight and send soldiers to their death. Moscow offered Ukraine in return to hand over their bodies of Russian soldiers. If there are any, apparently they have nothing to return. He said this on current developments. As I already mentioned, dear friends, Russian side is ready to transfer to Kiev regime 6,000 bodies of killed Ukrainian military personnel, and is ready to receive bodies of killed Russian military personnel if Kiev regime can transfer. But for now, no movement in this direction is happening. Medinsky also said Russia does not need a war at all. it is necessary for the current leadership of Ukraine, which is also true. Kiev regime and its mainly its Western backers, by the way, globalists, they want this war because they still believe that they can achieve this so-called strategic defeat of Russia. And as long as they can sacrifice anybody on Kiev-controlled territory and throw people into trenches, well, they will continue to do so, most likely. The Ukrainian delegation in 2022 at their negotiations looked more independent and free than this year, which is quite understandable. Globalists have a strong grip on Kiev regime, 100%. Plus, they've become very nervous and they are constantly looking at each other. It feels like they are watching each other. They don't trust each other, by the way. This is also a good observation from Medinsky. Kiev regimes are elements in Kiev regime, by the way. They're constantly looking after their back because they never know which one of them will be taken out by globalists for whatever reasons, right? So they cannot trust nobody, literally. The problem with their peace process is that Europe does not allow Kiev to reach favorable agreements. Also true. It is possible to quickly reach an agreement on acceptable terms if the negotiations from Kiev are guided by the interests of Ukraine and not Europe. And by saying Europe, I think Medinsky means globalists, obviously, and globalist puppet regimes in Europe, UK, first of all, France also, Germany, and the rest. The rare agreement with Ukraine is nothing compared to what American business could get through partnership with Moscow. Medinsky also said, which is true, factual, obviously, Russia is incomparably much more rich country in natural resources than Ukraine or vast majority of the countries in this world, for that matter. Trump's policies are understandable to Russia. He is guided by the national interests of the United States. Well, I mean, I find it difficult to understand why Russian leadership is this soft towards Trump's administration. Maybe my understanding is mistaken, but I think Russian leadership is quite soft in regards to Trump's administration, while they are quite tough on globalist puppet regimes in Europe. And this is happening while just recently US orchestrated attacks on Russian nuclear triad. And in no circumstances I'm going to believe, by the way, that US administration, I mean, Trump himself personally, people in his administration, or the CIA was not involved in any way, shape, or form in this attack on Russian nuclear triad. Without CIA, by the way, without Washington, London makes no steps, right? At least that was the case until now. And what has changed, really? So why should I believe that this attack on Russian nuclear triad that happened a week ago, approximately, 10 days ago, was orchestrated UK only, and US was not involved in that? Is it even possible on theoretical level that CIA did not know what was going on? I don't think so. And therefore, I find it very difficult to understand why this softness towards US administration, man. They are enemies of ours, right? Clearly, and US has to pay. UK has to pay for crimes that they committed, and US has to pay, and every other enemy. But anyways, I mean, it's not me decision maker, isn't it? Other people are, and I just find it difficult to understand why they've been this soft towards the US administration, at least for now. But well, this is the statements of Medinsky, by the way, and he is not just the aide of Russian president, but also, as already pointed out, he is the head of Russian delegation, Russian negotiation team with the Kiev regime. So his statements definitely matter, I will say. And to continue, dear friends, I already mentioned that well, there are plenty of enemies of Russia out there, mainly, namely collective Western countries, of course. And one of the points on this in this world where our enemies are escalating is the Baltic Sea, right? And I think, and many other people will agree with me, I guess that Baltic Sea can be the point when we will see first direct clashes between Russian and their NATO militaries. Not necessarily a Ukraine, but Baltic Sea. Although it might happen in Ukraine too, but Baltic Sea is definitely resembles right now, to me at least, with their explosive that is ready to go off. That's how tense situation there is, and Russia is preparing. Russia is preparing, and this morning I shared their information with their on my Telegram and Twitter X page with community that Russia's major flex is taking place in the Baltics. Northern Fleet frigate Admiral Kasatonov launched hypersonic Zircon missiles during the drills. Also, Baltic Fleet simulated the strikes on enemy vessels. Anti-terror teams were conducting training to free captured vessels. Also, Air Force of Baltic Fleet and Air Force that is located in Kaliningrad region and the Leningrad region conducted their operations to train in air-to-air combat and also to take out enemy vessels. So quite a large-scale drills, military drills are taking place in the Baltics, in which not just Baltic Fleet is involved, but also number of vessels from Northern Fleet, Northern Sea Fleet. And well, this should be the warning. This should be the warning for globalists and their puppet regimes in Europe that, well, Moscow is ready. We see enemy activity. We see that they are escalating, and we are ready to take action whenever it's necessary. I think important news. Excuse me. And when it comes to Russian enemies, by the way, obviously UK is up there, on top, right, together with US. And I'm talking about obviously political leadership, local elites there, and so on. And for example, and I think I'm not alone on this regards. Vast majority of my fellow citizens probably are on the same page with me, and maybe Lavrov also, foreign minister of the Russian Federation, because he stated that UK is 100% helping Ukraine to stage terrorist acts against Russia. And this is foreign minister of Russian Federation is saying. So there is no doubt that Britain is helping Ukraine to carry out terrorist attacks inside the Russia. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated there have been several sabotage incidents on Russian railways since the start of the month. The worst occurred on June 1st when a bridge collapsed in front of their moving passenger train in the Bryansk region, killing 7 people and injuring more than 100. The same day, Ukraine targeted Russian air bases across the country, from Murmansk in the Arctic to Irkutsk in Siberia, in a coordinated assault which involved explosive loaded drones taking off from commercial trucks. According to Moscow, most of their incoming routes were shut down, and none of the affected Russian planes were damaged beyond repair. Well, this is a very optimistic claim, by the way. Unfortunately, based on, yet again, I'm not military expert, but based on videos and photos that I see, some planes were damaged beyond repair. I think there was almost nothing left from some planes. So unfortunately, this had happened, and Moscow is quite clearly pointing finger at UK, that this country United Kingdom is 100% involved in terrorist activity that formerly Kiev regime is conducting on the Russian territory, and this is a big deal. But to continue, dear friends, speaking during the forum of the Future 2050 in Moscow on Monday, Lavrov acknowledged that the risk of the rise in the level of terrorist threats exists in Russia. It is obvious that all this is being done by the Ukrainian side, but it would have been helpless without the support from the British, he said. Such activities were previously backed by both the US and UK, but now we would have to do solely with the British, Lavrov claimed. And yet again, dear friends, you see, top Russian diplomat is disengaging kind of US from involvement in these terrorist attacks on Russian Federation, which indicates softening of the Russian position towards the US. I don't like it, absolutely. I think this approach further encourages US leadership, US state institutions, including terrorist organizations like CIA, for example, to conduct more terrorist attacks on Russian territory. But I guess it will take maybe another week or 2 months, and the rhetoric on part of Russian leadership going to change. Probably they still hope that they might reach some agreement with Trump's administration, and they are so wrong on that, by the way. They are so wrong on that. Trump's administration and Trump himself is 110% controlled, completely controlled by neocons and the Zionists, by the way. And they are allies of globalists. So I truly struggle to understand why anybody in Russian leadership would think that they can find common ground with current administration in US, especially after recent terrorist attacks on Russian Federation that clearly was orchestrated by the CIA, right? By CIA, US CIA, British MI6, maybe with involvement of some other secret services from, I don't know, France, Germany, potentially, right? I don't know, but this is the situation. I think give it another month, and stance of Russian leadership gonna become much more stronger in regards to Washington also. But UK, well, UK is, as I said, out there. Many Russian high-ranking officials are pointing finger at London for all the terrorist and criminal activity against Russia, and this is serious. This is serious, I think, because in no circumstances, in my understanding, Moscow can ignore attack on its nuclear triad. It's just impossible, right? Humanly impossible. It would be extremely irresponsible to ignore attack on your nuclear triad, right? And that's exactly what US and UK did. And if you notice, Russian president is silent about this, right? Russian president did not even once commented these attacks on Russian nuclear triad yet. And this silence should be extremely worrying for, I think, both US and the UK, especially for UK, because as far as I can tell, monitoring policies and steps of the Russian president for so long, by the way. Maybe I'm 3 years, in the last 3 years, doing these videos on the channel, but obviously I'm monitoring news constantly. I mean, I'm in journalism since, I don't know, 17 years. It's more than 3 decades now. And based on my understanding, silence of Putin is very serious stuff. He will wait now until investigation will come up with their final conclusions, until our investigative committee will share its conclusions with the president, until military investigators will share their conclusion, until our foreign intelligence service will do the same, and also FSB, Federal Security Service. And obviously this conclusion is going to be that this terrorist attacks was conducted with the direct involvement of UK, for sure, 100%, as Lavrov said already, and potentially with the involvement of US Secret Services, even if Trump himself, for example, was not informed about it, but CIA was engaged in that 100%, by the way. And once Russian president will receive all the data from these institutions here in Russia, he will greenlight whatever operations needs to be done to restore nuclear deterrent, because that's what happened, by the way. Russia's nuclear deterrent was breached. And now, whomever was engaged in this attack, they have to pay. They have to pay heavily, so that everyone in this world would understand that nuclear triad of Russia is untouchable. That's it, period, untouchable. So therefore, Russia's answer is going to be something of extraordinary, for sure. Direct or indirect retaliation will be extremely serious. Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with the crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.